What's up, everyone? This is TJ Zwarych with the Agents of Fandom, joined by two of the stars from the upcoming hit show on HBO and Crave in Canada. We have Fred Nguyen Khan as well as Duy Nguyễn. Thank you so much for joining me today. The Sympathizer is exciting. It's a great show. I've got a chance to watch it just last night.
Amazing.
Thank you for both joining me.
Of course, thank you for having us. Oh. Okay. We did not rehearse that.
That kind of leads me perfectly to my first question. You know, you are both in this show part of a group called the Blood Brothers. The three of you with the main lead from the show. You have amazing chemistry. How long did it take the three of you to get that going together, and did it continue off screen as well?
I don't know if many people know this, but Duy and I were very close friends before we got this show. We live in Montreal, Canada. Mm-hmm. So Canadians represent. And so he was my reader for my first audition, actually.
Yeah, he's my reader for my audition. Yeah. So it's crazy. We both got to be on this, and then we met Hoa on set for the first time, and you saw him for like 2 weeks.
So the way that what happened was I got the role first, and Duy was cast 2 months after we started shooting already.
Yeah.
But the first 2 weeks of shooting of the whole production, it was just me and Hoa, who plays the captain. The captain and Bom, both very intimate scenes by themselves. So I had no other choice but to really bond with Hoa. It was just me and him, just figuring things out. Hoping for the best, and very and to answer your question about if the chemistry's still on.
Oh yeah,
hell yeah, it is.
It's still on.
Yeah.
We took like a month trip after shooting the show to Vietnam.
Yeah,
like the whole cast, just to hang out with each other a bit more.
There's like 20 group chats but with the same people in all of them. So like I don't understand why we have. It's just. People start new group chats just to ask a different topic when they can just, I don't know.
That's incredible. And it definitely shows on the screen as well. Fred, this one's for you specifically. Without diving into any kind of spoilers, your character has to go through a pretty intense bit of depression and sadness and grief. Yep. What did it take for you to kind of tap into that mindset?
That's a good question. I, the first 2 weeks of shooting, like I told you before, where it was just me and Hoa, a lot of those scenes were shot during that time. And during those scenes, my character Bom doesn't really speak much. He's mostly sleeping or drinking. So I really wanted to, because we shoot everything out of order as well, I really wanted to lock down what my non-verbal body language was early on, so that it can remain consistent throughout the show. And there was a lot of mannerisms that I took from my uncles, my father, just to people that went through these events. And even though it's not something that I will tell people, it's something that'll be embodied in my physical performance. And I think just for me, that's enough to just be grounded in that mood.
Alternatively, Duy, you have more of like a sinister approach to some of these parts, especially at the beginning. You don't really know, am I cheering for this character? Am I cheering against this character? Right. Cards are very close to the vest. How much did you know about the whole character going in, and how did you kind of keep those cards close to the vest?
Right. It's a tricky balance, actually. I won't spoil anything. It's gonna get wild, but it is a tricky balance. Luckily, I read the book in 2016, so I kind of knew going in what the character is, and but it's a lot of figuring out, throwing stuff against the wall, and then talking to the showrunner, the directors about it, and then how much do you want to show at the beginning, and when is the time to reveal the cards, and how much surprise you want to keep, and also still keep it consistent, and you want to keep some mystery for the audience to solve, and
Yeah.
and like you said, I think everybody except for Bone, but every character in this show, they hiding something. There's something secret they cannot tell the other.
That's true. I'm pretty
Yeah.
I'm pretty open book.
Yeah. So, and that's the gripping part of the show too. It keeps you engaged because you don't know when is the secret going to be revealed and what the secret is. So
What is it that it seems like this show kind of had a bit of an interesting, casting process, shooting process, out of order over the course of a long time. What do you think the execs over at HBO saw that made them go, all right, Game of Thrones, Succession, The Sympathizer is next. It's going in that Sunday night late spot. What do you think from the show gave them such confidence? And for what it's worth, I agree, because the show was fantastic. Fred, we'll start with you.
I appreciate
so
you
much.
enjoying the show so much because we worked so hard on it.
Yeah.
And we are actually very proud of the show as well. So many stars aligned for this to be where it's at. We have to start with the amazing source material, the novel written by Viet Nguyen, Pulitzer Prize winning novel. The story is just amazing. But consuming media is very different reading and watching it on screen. So whereas you don't get the pleasure of reading Viet's writing, now, on the other hand, you have the legendary director Park Chan-wook to adapt visually the text. And that name alone, his work speaks for itself. It's going to be good with his name attached. And then A24 coming in, and then you have Robert Downey Jr., who, at that time when we were shooting had not yet won the Oscar.
Yeah.
Now
true.
it's like
He's
it was
an Oscar winner.
Yes, it was a given at the time, even when it didn't happen yet.
Yeah.
And then we have Sandra Oh, who's just such an amazing
Canadian
queen. And this cast is just the ensemble, the Vietnamese cast, I have to say, is like, I cannot love anyone more than that because it's literally like a family reunion every time we see each other, and it feels like your favorite cousins are in the house together. You talk about chemistry between the three blood brothers. Between the whole cast is the same way.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on in HBO executives' mind to greenlit the show, but I'm so glad they did.
Yeah.
And it's such a special story to tell, especially in today's world. When everything is so polarized and everything is, people are ready to hurt each other because of political ideologies. And then you see the blood brother in the show who on the opposite spectrum of political but they love each other, and we'll see where that love take them. But
two on the opposite sides and one kind of being pulled between the two worlds in the middle. And it's such an interesting story because so often in these stories of wartime, we see a clear protagonist side, a clear antagonist side. But throughout the Sympathizer, the lines are blurred and you don't really know where you are supposed to be cheering for. And essentially it's just showing war is bad and people suffer. As a Canadian, I wasn't quite as familiar with a lot of the details in the war in Vietnam, just because that's not something we're overly taught. I remember, speaking of incredible Canadians, I remember seeing a show like Ms. Marvel, and Aman Vellani's Kamala Khan made me want to learn more about partition and what happened between India and Pakistan. And I found the same thing happening in The Sympathizer with the war in Vietnam. How familiar were both of you with both sides of the story going into the show? And did you have to do any research as well, or is this something you were kind of already familiar with?
So for me personally, I was born in Montreal, Canada. My family left Vietnam during the war. And so my perspective from the war is from the southern side of Vietnam, where, in their a lot of their opinions, because they suffered so much trauma, it's hard for them to kind of view the northern Vietnamese, like the communist side, as, protagonists in a way. Like they're to them it's very antagonist. But that was because of all the trauma and you don't realize that as a child growing up, you get indoctrinated in ways that is just normal for the culture. But every Vietnamese family that I've met, everyone has such a different experience. There's no one true experience for the Vietnamese people and the refugees, but even though it's the same event, everyone has their own. Right. It's kind of like the blip in Marvel. Everyone went through it, but not everyone has the same story when they come back from it, or even Right. So it felt really cool for me personally, because I get to really learn more about the southern side of that, even outside of my parents, really, and to portray a character that very well could be someone from my family. Was a very surreal experience at times because of all the suffering that goes through on in the story. But it's also a full circle moment, Vietnamese refugees, they don't like to talk about the trauma. So for me to even be able to portray this, and it's just it feels very full circle.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I'm with you. I actually don't know much about the Vietnam War. Growing up, I grew up in Vietnam. 17 years I lived in Vietnam. But I grew up a couple of decades after the war. So people in Vietnam actually moved on. They don't carry the trauma of having to leave their country. So it was easier for them to process and move on from it. So my family don't talk to me a lot about the Vietnam War. All I knew is Vietnam War, the North and the South united and defeated the American. But never talked about what happened in the South. Where did the people that left the country, where do they go? How did they get to America and Canada and all over the world? So coming into this show and reading the book for the first time in 2016, it was my first time actually getting exposed to this side of the war. And I realized how much stories there is, and how, heartbreaking the stories are. Yeah. And now that we get to bring it out for millions of people to see, and to say there's no one side to war. War has many sides, and that many sides have many, many other sides. And I hope that we, moving forward, we get to, explore even more of this, of the war that is the Vietnam War, or the American War. That's how I call it, how we call it when I was living in Vietnam. Yeah.
And I think just that last part is a perfect example of how the perspectives, who's telling the story, totally changes how the story looks. And it's so important to get these different perspectives. And it's something the show does incredibly well. Fred, you brought up the blip. I mentioned Ms. Marvel. I kind of have to ask, you worked with Robert Downey Jr. Were you both fans of his in advance? And what was it like working with him?
That's amazing. It's you want to say something?
It took I think the first time I saw him on set, he came to shake my hand, and I know we're colleagues, right? Because we're working on the same show, so we have to be professional. But it took me all the energy in the world not to be oh my god, Iron Man is in the room. No, but
really, you did? I was not professional the first time I met him at all.
What? I was freaking out. No, I mean, who doesn't love Robert Downey Jr.?
I have a really fun story about that, actually. Well, two things I want to say about Robert. He is exactly who you hope he is. When you see him on TV and interviews and stuff like that, how charming he is, how funny he is, how friendly he is. That's how he is in real life. You hope he is like that. And part of me was nervous because, he could have been any other way. Yeah. But he lived up to and exceeded, actually, my expectations. And I have a really funny story. When we were shooting in Thailand, it was a club scene, the Hellhole. We went to the Hellhole. And
no spoilers.
No spoilers. We're just at a club in Thailand. This has nothing to do with the story of the show.
Okay, just a club.
I can relate. I've done that before. I've been to a club in Thailand.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
In Thailand, right?
Anyone can relate.
So we're all there. It's Robert is there, me, Hua, and the other soldiers are there. And then Mark Munden, the director of that episode, he was giving notes about how to walk down the stairs and then where we would reunite at the bottom. And then some of us couldn't hear him properly. So Robert took over and said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to go through these doors. We're going to go down. And then at the end of the stairs, we're going to assemble. He used the word assemble. And then I held on to Hua. I was like, and he's like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like,
the Sympathizer.
Iron Man told us to assemble. We're Avengers now.
Wow, I wasn't there.
No, you weren't
Damn
there.
it.
You weren't there. Clearly, you were blipped.
my
You were blipped
God.
already.
I was. That's true. No, no, but he's also in real life. He's so kind, so
Yeah.
generous, so
Yeah.
nice. He talks to everybody on set. He remember everybody's name. He shake hands with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it's like, how do you get so successful, so cool, and
Yeah.
so nice at the same time? No, we love Robert Downey Jr.
There's very few people in the world who probably have Kevin Feige's actual phone number in their cell, and I think Robert Downey Jr. is probably one of them. Did you get the chance to give him a nudge and be like, hey, put in a good word for me? And who would you want to play in the MCU if the two of you ever got a chance?
Oh,
Oh
my
my.
God, that's such a tough question.
Well, so for people who don't know my background at all, I am actually a lifelong martial artist.
Mm.
I grew up in a martial arts family. I actually trained at the Shaolin Temple for a few
Mhm.
months, and so for me, the idea of portraying a character that, I mean, Shang-Chi's already taken, obviously,
Right.
but that would have been the one back then.
Yeah.
Um,
There's not a lot of options.
there's Iron Fist maybe, but you know what? I would love to play the villain in the Shang-Chi movie.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the Killmonger of Shang-Chi.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like that.
I could do it. I could
You
pull
can do it. Oh
off.
yeah,
I could do it.
totally. Oh my God, it's tough. It's tough. You know, if
Yeah.
maybe we cast like all genders and race aside, because it's tough to choose which is being Asian.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything. It's 2024. You can pick any character. you want.
Right. Yeah. You know, there is an Asian version of the Hawk. The Hawk.
yeah.
The Hawk. Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually like
Amadeus-
to be.
Amadeus
Yeah,
Cho,
exactly.
Yeah.
Amadeus, yeah.
Yeah.
Amadeus.
And his mother is already, or aunt's grandmother, a relative has already been introduced in the MCU already.
Yeah.
So there you go. But switching things back, you brought up before, and I think it's hilarious that you use the exact same term as my wife when referencing Sandra Oh, and that is Canadian royalty. An
Yeah.
absolute icon worldwide, but here in Canada as well. What was it like for both of you working with Sandra? And I found it so interesting too, because her role, again, keeping it spoiler free,
Mhm.
the way she talks to Robert Downey Jr. character, specifically involving race, and the way she kind of dismisses some of the more, especially now, inappropriate comments his character were to make. It's very interesting because in reality, Sandra Oh is one of the champions of representation here in Canada and in the acting community in general. So what was it like working with her, and did you get a chance to speak with her lots and learn from her?
You know, we did get the chance to. I don't have any scenes with Sandra, unfortunately, but we talk a lot. We got to connect throughout the press tour in the last couple of weeks.
And even on set, you
Yeah.
know, she's
And-
so
Mhm.
she's so kind. She's exactly who you hope she is.
She's a champion, and she do it every single day, still to this day, on set, off set, and she never takes credit for it.
Yeah, I think she felt very strongly that she has a position where she can help.
Shining the light.
She can help support people that are newer to the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think she feels that she is being what she would have wanted someone to be for her in her early days in the career. But she just does it, and she does it without announcing that she's doing it. Like sometimes she doesn't know that we know that she's doing it.
Yeah,
you know,
but
so
we know you're fighting for us.
Yeah, so and there's a moment very specifically for me personally where we are at a scene and she's there as well. And there's a scene where I have to be very emotional. And you know, on set things move so fast. The camera speaks, and time is money. You know, so they set up the lights and the camera's set up and everyone's ready. And all of a sudden I just hear, okay, we're rolling. Fred, you're going to cry with tears now. And I was just like, okay. And then I just hear Sandra saying, no. We're going to give him some time. You know, he needs a moment to get into it, even though it's not real. Right. He still needs to feel it. Yeah. And so from, that I've always loved Sandra, but from that day on, I'm just going to always protect her with everything that I have.
Well, the Sympathizer is going to be premiering on Max in the States, Crave in Canada, Sunday, April 14th. Make sure to check it out because it is truly a powerful and wonderful show. Thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It was
Oh
such
my
a
God,
pleasure.
I'm a
to talk to
fan of the channel, by the way. So I'm like, this is crazy.
Thank you so much. That is ridiculous. That's crazy. That's the coolest thing
We're
I've
just
ever
geeks.
heard.
We're just geeks here.
Yeah.
You know, like
Definitely would love to get a chance to talk to you again in the future. Maybe we'll
Absolutely.
bring you on the podcast as soon as things calm down and we'll talk some geek stuff.
Oh yes,
Yes, let's do that.
amazing. All right,
Great meeting you.
All right.
great meeting you.
Great meeting you as well. Have a good one.